Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Thank you for joining our second International Women's Day sessions. Today we're thinking about career development, and we've kindly got Liz, Sarah, Tracy and Kelly here to share some of their stories about how their careers have developed, some of the decisions they've made, any training they've embraced, so that we can all think about our career plans and think about the future. Thank you.
There we go. I'm just going to put that down a little bit so you can see me. Either that or I'll have to get a box. Good afternoon to everybody. It's an absolute privilege to be here today, to be able to speak to you. And in effect, for Women's Day, for Women's Week, I think it is. And we do represent half of the population, so it is wonderful to have a little bit of attention and whatever. When I was first asked to do this, I thought, oh no, this isn't me at all. And I thought, well, it'll all be about feminism and whatever. So I've actually looked up the definition of feminism to see if I am one. And it says, feminism is a collection of movements and ideologies that share a common goal to establish and achieve equality culturally, personally, and within social rights. And I thought, well, perhaps I am. I've never thought of that before, but perhaps I am. The thought of giving anybody advice on how to reach their career goals is something I can't really do. You're all your own people, and you've all achieved what you've achieved through your own ways. So I'm going to go completely off piece. I'm sticking to that, but also for the benefit of people who are coming after me, I'm going to go slightly off cue a little bit. And I was saying to my daughter only the other day, there are no gender stereotypes at all in our house. And she said, no. She said, why are we discussing it in the kitchen, though? And I thought, well, I'll have a quick look and see influential women on Google. I thought that'll give me a start. I'll start with that. So I had a quick look, and it comes up with powerful women. I thought, yes, that's the place to start. I'll start there. Had a quick look, clicked on powerful women, and it comes up with party dresses. And they were all off the shoulder, so I thought it was no good even going there. So I thought, well, I'll think it out myself. So I had a think of all the sort of influential women that probably in some way or other have inspired us over the years. And I thought Joan of Arc, Boadicea, Pocahontas, Queen Elizabeth I, Queen Elizabeth II, Cleopatra, Marie Curie, Ella Fitzgerald, Helen Keeler. And once you start, you can't stop, and you go on and on and on. And there are so many influential women that I'm sure every single one of us, whether we're male or female, have had some inspiration from, whether you've heard them sing or you've seen a film about them, and you think, wow, that is wonderful. And quite often, they've made the best job of circumstances that they've found themselves in. They've made the best of a bad job. Sometimes they've had the most awful lives, and from that, something very, very special has come. And I thought about these wonderful women, and I thought, what was their influence? What made them so special? I thought they would have had role models. Who were their role models? And thinking back, all of our role models, without a doubt, are our parents. Each one has moulded us into who we are. And also teachers. I'm sure every single one of you can think of a really good teacher that has said something to you, encouraged you, has said, go for it, go for that, go for, I was told geography, go for it, because I wasn't any good at it and I did it. But also, I'm sure you can think of a bad teacher, the one who made you stand in the corner with the hat on. So influence comes in both ways. Childhood as well, I think that bears an awful resemblance on what we've become. I can remember having an aunt who was pastel. She was just absolutely fantastic. She used to waft into the room in these pastel outfits, and I just wanted to be her. She was twinkly and sparkly. I also like to listen to what other women have said, and that often makes you realise either how lucky you are or how much in common you have with other women. Now, I come from a military background. All our family over the years have been in the military. So at some time, somebody has been away at war somewhere or other, and there's always been women there who are holding the fort. And I think that has been very much the same in many families over generations and generations. We've always been fighting somewhere. So you've always had this sort of women-based fraternity pushing you on, telling you, get out there and do it. Now, I most certainly have, and my mother was the cleverest woman I will ever know. She was a draftsman and she worked on the Kariba Dam in Kenya. And she was so sharp, people used to say if she was any sharper, she'd cut herself. But she was incredibly clever, and she was taller than me, which I will never, ever forgive her for. But she always will be, and she always said to me, you cannot change your mother, and you can't. And working from that, she came from her mother, my grandmother, was an absolute rebel who eloped and ran off to Birmingham and became a bus conductress. And forever and a day, I was told in the family how she used to flash her ankles when she went up the stairs. And she also founded one of the first women's cricket teams in Birmingham. And I can remember seeing a photograph of her bowling with her knee protectors, or whatever they are, on. And that was quite a thing for her time. And her mother, going back to what we heard yesterday, was a midwife. She was a community midwife when the NHS didn't exist. And she was there, delivering babies, and in effect the family adopted many of these children whose mothers had died in childbirth, and our family was at that time, going back 3 generations, was quite large. So all these influences, and all of you will have exactly the same influences. You'll have your mother, your grandmother, etc. All families come together in some way genetically to make us what we are. Equally, going back to stereotyping, my mother was determined that my brother, coming from a military family, was not going to be gun fodder, as she said. So he had a tea set, there were no guns or anything like that allowed in the house, no gender at all. He then went on to have a wonderful career in the army and has only just left, so I don't know whether it works. There has always been that attitude of get on with it, get it done, get it sorted. You can do what you want to do. And from that attitude, through my family, and I'm sure through everybody's family likewise, I've always done that. I have never perhaps been the best suited for a job or the best qualified or whatever, but if I have wanted a job or a career prospect or whatever, I've gone for it. Absolutely gone for it. One of the best jobs I had, I don't think I was the best applicant, but I did want the job because it was a lot more money and I knew I could do it really well. I worked in a factory with 50 MIG and TIG welders. I was the only woman on the shop floor. I had a wonderful time, girls. And I had to put things in line because I was the only woman there. I had to show respect for the men I worked with, and I expected them to show me respect likewise. From that, I just wanted a picture of this. I used to wear an orange boiler suit, as if I had escaped from Guanamato Bay or wherever it is. This orange boiler suit and these horrendous safety shoes with toe caps, if you can imagine. And that makes me think of a quote. It says, Give a girl the right shoes and she can conquer the world. That's Marilyn Monroe. And I think that's very apt. I had the right shoes. They weren't glamorous, but they were the right shoes for the job. And I conquered that job. I did really well there. I set up a laboratory, and we became a leading force in mixed gas. And that has put me in good stead for the future of becoming a county councillor. I didn't know at the time I'd ever be a county councillor, never ever. But all that heckling, all that banter with 50 welders, you try and heckle me, you try. It was great, and it has shown me another side of life, etc. And all of that is experience, and we've all got great experience. And one of the things I would say is find that experience and use it and work upon it. Thinking back to my mother, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother, I did think, I've actually let the side down a bit. You know, they've done quite wondrous things, and really, what have I done? But I think that is one of the things as women that we should not do, is we always put ourselves down, and that's the one thing that holds us back sometimes. Think of the great things that you've done, and they are great. Every single one of us, bringing up a family, organising a house, sorting out curtains and washing and all that side of things, and having a job. I mean, it's only women really that do that. We do an awful lot. So, in many respects, my career advice is just get on with it. If you want it, go for it, because you can do it. You most certainly can. Every single one of you, whether you're male or female, if you really want to do something, do it. And do it soon.
Hi everybody. I wasn't expecting to run straight into it, but when I was first asked to do this, I sort of brushed Abby off a bit because I was busy on something called Estin for preparation. I said, yeah, no problem, I'll do it. And I thought, I'll think about it nearer the time. So nearer the time became last night. So not to let the side down, hopefully. But actually, a lot of what Liz said, she may feel that she went off piece, but actually chimes hugely with what I was thinking about before, whilst I was thinking about this last night. And I do need this, actually. Will this pop up? Next one, though, the next one. There we are. Okay. This is my mum Guy, not my mother. My mother's to come. From the beginnings of my childhood, which was in the valleys, about 25 miles from here, as a crow flies, to chief officer at the moment in Monmouthshire County Council. The journey has been a fairly roundabout one, it would be fair to say, and certainly not the quickest or the shortest route. It wasn't planned with any great strategic thought at all, but before I get on to that, let me introduce you. I was thinking about influences in my life, and since this is International Women's Week, it seemed only right that I thought about female influences. In my early career, I think it was the second year of my career in teaching in London, I had a teaching assistant called Linda. And Linda was a member of the community. Linda and I got on really well. Linda and I dealt with some really tough issues that I think teachers nowadays would stop and wonder at in terms of support. Kevin Osunbo used to throw himself regularly under tables. Rebecca would walk into the classroom and find her with tables stacked, no word of a lie. I became an expert at catching chairs by one leg. And honestly, you know, all of the above. And Linda was a mainstay. I could never have survived that job without my teaching assistant. And one day she said to me, let me read your cards. And I thought, oh, for God's sake, I come from a semi-Baptist background. This isn't a good idea, you know. It was something I'd been brought up with as a no-no. But she insisted, and she read my cards in the classroom. You can tell them now if you want, I don't care. And all of a sudden, as this reading was going on, and I feel increasingly uncomfortable, worrying that Kevin was going to shoot through the door any minute, it turned out that apparently women were going to be a great influence in my life. Little did I know at this point how great, mind you, but there were 5 apparently very influential women going to be in the rest of my life. Now, I think I'd already met certainly 2 of them, and this is the first one. This is Marion Thomas. She's 95 at the moment. I hope she reaches 96. We didn't think she would a few weeks ago, to be fair, but she's over there, living over in the Rhymney Valley. Mum left school at 13. She was one of 13 children. She was orphaned at 15. Her father, David, was killed in a train crash on the way back from the pit. He was the only one killed in the crash because he had an enormous belt buckle, and the train crash threw him forward, and it was his belt buckle that killed him. I tell you this because the belt buckle is significant. My grandmother's one of 13 who were all fierce redheads. I mean, really red, a bit like Tracy's top red. It was really red. And they were known locally as the Keelogs, which is the Welsh for cockerel. And my great-grandfather had a belt buckle with a cockerel on it because he couldn't read or write. So his stamp was, and his mark was a cockerel stamp. Anyway, Mum was orphaned. She then was married at 19 to my grandfather, who was a miner. And after years down the pit, he rose to a position above ground, and that all helped, apparently. But Mum was a bit of an entrepreneur, and she opened a shop in Rhymney, and she also bought some properties. She baked her own hams, she baked her own beefs, she baked her own Wimbury tarts, and they weren't just any Wimbury tarts, they were Wimbury tarts that Mum had gone and climbed the mountain in Aberbargad to go and pick, and she made those tarts and sold them. She was an entrepreneur without question. She was an avid climber. She's climbed the Sugarloaf. She loved this part of the world and actually still does call Monmouthshire her home. In fact, she pronounces it Monmouthshire, which doesn't chime with some people, but she tells me she's quite determined that it's Monmouthshire, and Monmouthshire was always her home and still is, Greater Monmouthshire. She's climbed Sugarloaf, she climbed Pen y Fan, she took me up there as a child. God only knows, health and safety didn't come into it. I've watched this woman throw half a pig over her shoulder. I've watched her throw bags of spuds over her shoulders. The point of me telling you this is that this is a woman of 4'10.5", which you can't see in that. She's shrunk now, she's about 4'6". And, but a strong woman, and not just physically. An incredibly strong woman. And of course, as a child, you don't think about this going on around you. But as I've grown into adulthood, of course, without question, this woman has been a massive influence in my life. She's also a woman before her time. Mum took vitamins before vitamins was something that anyone really thought about. She's grown her own always and grown her own remedies. If you had a headache in our house, it was a Feverfew sandwich, and that's still the case, although she can't pick it herself. She's also a bit of a maverick. Yes, I told her she married my grandfather at 19, Will. She left him, though, at, what age were they? I'm not sure. I was born in Solihull, and we had to come home because their marriage had broken down. And it was unheard of these days, early 70s. Divorce in these, in our Valleys communities really wasn't something that's spoken about. They didn't divorce, but she left him for a much younger Dutch Indian fella called Gerard. She took a lover. And I am very glad to tell you that her companion today, sitting next to her in the chair over there in her flat, is Gerard. Gerard now looks after her, and he's her main carer, along with my mum. So, that wasn't just a whim. She followed her heart, and that's something that she certainly taught me. This is my mum, Gaynor. She had greater opportunities than her own mother, of course. She had a full education. Mum went on to be a teacher and then a head. She works avidly now for the community in which she lives. And it's a tough enough community for those of you that know that north end of the Valleys. She's a toughie, my mum. She is certainly a Marmite. Really, you either do love her or you don't. There's no middle ground with Gaynor. And she's a bit scary. And I said this to somebody yesterday, and they said, it's not good to be scared of your mum. I said, no, I didn't say I'm scared of her. I am a bit, actually. But she can be a bit scary. But that's because she's so passionate, and I think that's the thread for me. She's passionate. We don't agree on everything. We don't agree, well, on many things actually, but she's as soft as caramel as well as really passionate, and she has some extremely difficult issues to put up with in her life, which I did wonder about talking about today, but I thought I wouldn't depress you all with those, that the not so nice side of family life really, but just to say, without going into it, we all have it. We all have dysfunction in our families, and mine certainly isn't without it, and my mum is an incredible woman for what she puts up with, and actually the love, unconditional love that she shows both my sister and myself. She's a passionate advocate of fairness, and she's very, very kind. And when I was thinking about the thread between mum and mam, I know there's a lot of mums, and then, in fact, I call her mam a lot of the time, so it depends on the context in our family of who you're with. So mam is whoever happens to be in the room at the time. But she's awfully kind, and my grandmother is also awfully kind. When we closed the shop in Rumney, there were 10 slates unpaid. And Mam used to work a 12, 13, 14-hour day sometimes in the shop. And that was because she knew that there were certain families from the top of the village that would need to come after dark, literally, and would need to come and get their groceries on slate. You know, we'll deal with it later kind of thing. And 10 slates weren't paid when we sold that business, or the family sold that business, and they never have been. And that's, it may not show great business acumen, but I certainly think it shows a huge amount of kindness. I learned a lot from my mother and my grandmother. Try your best, work hard, and how worthwhile it is to add value to your community, to give, not just to take. And then there's me. That is me, honestly. That's me a few years ago. I always make reference to weight because I'm me. That's about 3.5 stone ago. And that was World Book Day in one of the schools I was working in London. I was Anne Boleyn. I don't want to come to the sticky end she did. I don't know if anybody is watching Wolf Hall. But since Leadership Today is fully accountable, I kind of hope that I should avoid Anne Boleyn's fate. But anyway. But I decided on this one. This is the one my daughter's chosen to put in her bedroom. And she points out, it's on a big canvas. When my partner got this done for me, I opened it. We were in a pub garden in North London. I opened this and I cried, not with happiness, because if you look really closely up at this was the first time I could see my real wrinkles and things. I cried. It was a horrible reaction to a very kind gesture. But anyway, how did I end up here? I honestly don't know is the answer. I racked my brains and thought, can I talk to them about strategic planning to get to this point in my career? I can't. I don't know. I can tell you physically how. I can tell you the state of what happened, but I didn't wake up when I was 10 and think, and declare, I want to be a leader. I had a lot of living to do before I made up my mind. I had my early education. I went through the Welsh medium sector over in the Rumney Valley. I then went to secondary Welsh medium sector, and I have to tell you, Chief Officer for Education, I didn't have a great school experience. I had a great primary experience, but my secondary experience was pretty shocking, actually, when I really, really analyse it. And that's possibly what's kept me in the line of work that I'm in. I wouldn't call it career, I call it my line of work. I came across some very influential, a few. I could count on one hand, in fact, how many influential teachers I came across. But one in particular, Glenys Reid, when I was doing my English A-level, I was thrown off my course in the first year because my English teacher had taken against. I'm sure it was something to do with me, obviously I had something to do with it. So I was thrown off A-level, and I ended up doing my A-level in a year and did it very successfully, but thanks to Glenys Reid. And it was people like that, the very few, that actually looked a bit deeper than the academic. If you were an academic high flyer back in when was I doing, early 90s, then apparently you just got on with it. Actually, there were layers and layers, and there are layers and layers to all our young children, all our children and young people. And thank God for some of those teachers that actually bothered to look at the layers with me, because I could very, very easily have gone off in a very different direction. I went to college, I went to uni, I studied French. Not many of you know that, probably, but I apparently can speak French. Better at it after a few glasses of Merlot, mind you. It's a bit rusty these days. and educational psychology. I also did my fair share of jobs in this time. I wasn't just, you know, an affluent, middle-class, lucky guy. You know, I did work the factories. In fact, when it was Liz reminded me just when she was talking about a factory work, I worked one summer in a factory. Go figure this. I was in a packaging factory, packaging stud spray. Clearly none of you know what that is. That's good. It was spray that lessened the effects that a gentleman might feel at certain times during his passionate embraces. Stud spray. And then the other half of the week, I was packaging Durex. It made no sense. Following on from that, I was packaging Vidal Sassoon Wash and Go. So I honestly don't know what the link there was, but I think I could probably make one. I spent some time living in France, and then I came back to Wales to finish the degree and went off to Leicester to train to be a teacher. And very quickly after that, ended up in London and sort of, I don't know, flew through the ranks somehow, but I honestly never planned any of it. I became a head teacher at quite a young age, really. And I guess I was always looking for new opportunities and challenges. Maybe the answer to why I'm doing what I'm doing is because potentially I get bored easily. Perhaps that's it. I don't know. I spotted this opportunity in Monmouthshire. I decided that I wanted to take another step in a different direction. This was after running schools in the state sector in North London, and by then a chain of 5 schools that had become academy converters, which Wales isn't terribly familiar with, but anyway, it was a very interesting time in my life. But I decided I wanted to be part of a local authority. I actively looked at local authority positions, and hey presto, there was this fantastic advert, and it was a good advert. You might not remember this advert, those people that were involved in it, if there's anybody in the room that was. I know Paul was. But it was a very, very interesting advert. It was very different to anything else that you'd see in the Times Ed at that point, and it did catch my eye. I was in Ireland at the time, and I thought one night, quite late, oh, you know what, I'll throw something together. And throw it together I did. And I suppose if we looked at my original application form, I remember Moina telling me, it was a bit thrown together, but there was something in there. And I thought, yeah, you're probably right, because I really did it at 2 a.m., which is often when I do my work. But and then this is it, really. Here I am. I must say, I thought about telling you this as well, but I will, because a lot of people know it. I didn't get this job. And I was so disappointed, because I really wanted it. It was the first time I'd come across anything that I really, really, really wanted. And a few weeks after not getting it and getting over the, dismay and thinking, okay, I'll look in whatever, look at something else now. Lo and behold, the position became vacant. I'm sure it was nothing to do with the fact that Monmouthshire went into special measures in the meantime. But, I can't comment, can I? But there you go. But I was really pleased, and I could really visualise myself working here. I could visualise myself working with the ethos that I'd already come across on the visits that I'd come down for, and I was really I was delighted. It wasn't to say that it was a massive life change. I uprooted my family. I moved a significant distance to come and do this job, but it's because I really wanted to do the job. And 2 years on, I'm so pleased that things worked out the way they did. And I'm absolutely delighted that I am bringing up my daughter in such a beautiful part of the world, but one that has wonderful prospects. This is my daughter, our daughter. This is Myfanwy. We call her Myfi. Myfi Myfanwy, lovely and loved. She's 2 years and 2 months old, and guess who the leader is in our house? A lot of the photos are of Myfi pointing or telling or something. I don't know where she gets that from. It's not me. It isn't me. But she'll be starting her formal education in 2017, like Carrie, Kelly's daughter. And depending on the path that Myfi chooses, whether it's plumbing or academia, she might graduate in June 2033, I worked out. There's supposed to be gasps there. Oh, my God. It's a gasp for me. She'll retire in 2082, assuming that retirement age doesn't increase beyond 70. But the reason I obviously include Myfi is because parenthood changes your perspective greatly. And there's no getting away from that. And when I wasn't a parent and I was leading schools, I often wondered whether there was any difference in my leadership style because I didn't have children at the time. I don't think I led differently, but I do think it brings a different perspective, without question. I'm not working in an abstract sense anymore. My work has a greater urgency because of her and because of her peers. And she's certainly given my professional life a deeper focus and a much more personal relevance, I guess, than before. Brings me a greater understanding also, of course, of the needs of parents in relation to their own children, and building and maintaining that optimum educational opportunity for her and her peers is a real driver. Over the years, I have to say, I've met lots of people who've been really let down by their education. But in the most part, thank goodness, eventually they have made successes of their lives, but too often that success has been delayed. And in the work I do now, I am absolutely driven to ensure that our schools have to be as good as they can be and that our children's opportunities aren't delayed. Pace is so important, and I know that I've said this many times, but I will keep saying it. Our children and our young people do not have time to waste. Every day is precious. We know that. I know that from my own educational experience, and that, frankly, now absolutely drives me. How do I juggle parenthood and work? I don't. They're enmeshed. I wouldn't consider juggling with something as precious as my little Christmas pudding. Mavi was born a week before Christmas. I am extraordinarily lucky to have a wonderful partner in life who sacrificed her own work over the last few years so that I can make some strides in the job that I do now. We share responsibility absolutely evenly for our Mavi, although probably not evenly during the week. At some point it balances out. If we travel, so does Mavi. If we eat, so does Mavi. If we read the papers, so does Mavi. If we watch the rugby in the pub, so does Mavi. Report me to Simon Birch if you like, but that's okay. But it also works both ways, and if Mavi plays shop, so do we. If she plays footy in the garden, so do we. And if she builds a tower, so do we. She's a very loved little girl. Her Guy and her Dada, that she calls Mum and Dad, Guy and Dada. Adora, old mam, she calls my mam. And Ardi, you remember, Dutch Indian companion? Yeah, love her. They adore her. And she has a myriad of aunties and uncles in our urban family, and they are constant in our lives and our conversations. And all of that love helps me to do the job that I do because I know that my daughter is happy. And if I know she's happy, I can get on with my work. It's International Women's Week. I'm about to finish, I promise, but the next comment I'm going to make might seem a little off-kilter in the context of the week that's in it. But since today's about women in leadership, I have to say that all that really concerns me about leadership is the need to be effective, and gender is completely irrelevant. And I'm sorry if that doesn't chime with everybody, but I don't apologise for it. If the woman's the right woman for the job, great. If the man's the right man for the job, great. If they're the wrong people for the job, get off the bus. And it doesn't matter what who the next person is that comes in, as long as they're the right one. It's all about the person, not the bits, I've reminded myself here. I'm not that bothered about breaking down the boardroom door. I'm certainly not intent on burning my bra. It wouldn't be good for anyone, trust me. I want our world to be a place where gender equality is no longer an issue to be discussed. And in many respects, I think the most powerful way to affect that is to work as hard as you can and be as good as you can be at what you do. Few things that I want to leave you with, just some lessons I've learned, and I don't get through anything without either a laugh or a cliche, so here come the cliches. Don't take anything at face value. Never think the job is finished, because it isn't. Be compassionate, and I think probably of all things, this is the thread that's come with me through my family influences and those women in my life who are amazing women. Be compassionate. You never know what journey that person that you're talking to at that time has been on before they've come into the room with you. You never know what's going on, and it works both ways. So be compassionate. And this is the, I suppose, cliched bit, but I do love this one, and I try to live my life by it really. Maya Angelou, you'll all be familiar with it, said, people won't remember what you did, they won't remember what you wrote, but they will remember how you made them feel. And again, that brings me back to the compassion, I suppose. So male, female, frankly for me, irrelevant. People are important, compassion is important, relationships are important. How did I get here? Haven't got a clue. It's all about that phone call that Paul Matthews made to me on December the 12th one year and said, well, you up for it then? And I said, let me think about it for 3 seconds. Yeah, right then. I like a challenge, I do. And I'm so pleased I came because I'm working with some sensational people of both genders, dangly and non-danglies. Thanks very much, guys.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that really, because what else can I say? That they've said it all, and they've said it so well. First, a bit about me. There are faces here that I don't know. I'm Tracy Harry. I'm head of Democracy and Regulatory Services, part of the leadership team, supposedly a leader of Monmouthshire. Well, I'm not sure about that. First of all, a little bit about me. I'm married. I've been with the current Mr. Harry for 32 years. I'm a mother of 3. I've got 2 grown-up boys, one who's in university and the other is doing his A-levels. And I have a 2-year-old German Shepherd who's my baby. I'm an introvert, I'm a control freak, and I hate being the centre of attention. And I'm currently totally out of my comfort zone. So, you know, that's the start for 10. I was asked to talk to you about my career path, the difficulties, the demands, and balancing those demands. And I thought, well, Christ, I've never really thought about that. A career? No, not really. And I thought, what the hell am I going to say to these people that sounds inspiring, that sounds, you know, yeah, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to be successful. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to meander through my life in terms of where I started from and where I've got to and some of the lessons that I've learnt on that path. In terms of where I started, I've got 2 sisters, Babs and Helen, and they are very bright. My God, are they bright. And I've got a mum, a bit like Sarah's, who's scary. And in our household, there was nothing ever said, but there was always expectation, I suppose, that you would be successful. It wasn't something that you could, you know, Mum ever said, you know, what you're doing, you've got to pass this aid, you've got to do that, you've got to do the other. That was just how it felt in the house. And you know, when you're surrounded by really bright people, then obviously that's gonna happen. But for those of you that can remember the 11 plus, I failed my 11 plus. My 2 sisters passed with glowing colours and off they went to grammar school, and I failed my 11 plus and I went to secondary modern school. And I was called Ken the Cop because my dad's a copper. And I sort of thought, oh my God, you know, I can't, you know, I'm already the black sheep of the family. I've already let everybody down. I'm a failure. And for me, I think that was one of the starting points in my life where I thought, God, I've got something to prove. I've really got to, you know, do something. I've got to prove myself. And within a year, I was transferred to the grammar school, and my 2 sisters, because there's 18 months between me and my elder sister, and 51 weeks between myself and my younger sister. So we were all in school together, and so competition was rife. And in those days, I was in a grammar school where there were 300 pupils, and at the end of every year, your position in the school was called out. And if you weren't in the first 20%, well, actually, you didn't exist. And that was very much the culture in which I grew up, and so you know, I worked hard, and I got my O-levels, I got my A-levels, and then I went on to university. And I suppose for me, really, the first ever career decision I made was when I left university. I had a degree in fish genetics, and I'd spent 3 years mainly in a lab, cutting things up, examining them under a microscope, and in fact the smell of agar jelly still lingers large. I became clear that I didn't want to do a master's, I didn't want to do a PhD, I didn't want to be a science researcher. In fact, I didn't want to work in a lab or a fish farm. I'm still passionate about fish, but only with chips or a salad and a nice glass of white wine. So what to do? So what next? Don't really know. Went home, picked up my Saturday job again, thought long and hard about it. My mate and I from uni said, I know, we'll travel. Let's get away. Let's go and see what's out there. And so I worked for a bit, saved some money, blagged some money off my mum and dad, and bought myself around the world air ticket. And it was fab. It was absolutely fab. Places were wonderful, but more importantly, the people were wonderful. And those 7 months, I suppose, were probably some of the greatest learning of my life. And what I learned from that experience was resilience, was how to be resilient, how to take risks, how to feel the fear and do it anyway, but also how to self-belief, believe in yourself, because actually, if you can believe in yourself, you can do absolutely anything. And all of those lessons for me have been really important through my career, and I still doubt the word career, my meander through life, but it's also been really important in my personal life, because I think all of those things are hugely important for your personal development, for your family life, and just getting the most out of life. So I get back from overseas. Oh my God, the minute I stepped off that plane, can I step back? I'm back in the real world. Do I really want to be in the real world? I'd worked whilst I'd been abroad. I'd lied, I cheated, I'd done all sorts of things I probably shouldn't have done, but I never hurt anybody. And like I said, I learned a lot. So I needed to get a job. I needed some money. And so my first proper job, proper in inverted commas, was as a medical rep. I needed an income, and with a science degree, it provided the potential to earn a lot of money as a graduate, and also to maintain some links with the science world, which I still really enjoyed. Within a short period of time, I knew it wasn't for me. The job was easy. My God, I could play squash 3 or 4 times a week and get paid for it. I did dirty deals with pharmacists. I spent time educating consultants and doctors about the use of dinitrates, and for many people it would have been an absolute dream job. I was my own boss. I determined where I went, when I went. If I wanted to work 2 days a week, I worked 2 days a week, and if I wanted to work 5, I worked 5. There was a career path that could, if I wanted it, it was there. But the job didn't make me happy. It didn't motivate me. I didn't feel that I was getting anything from it. So, what next? At the time, I was living in Plymouth. My future hubby was living in Wales, and we had a weekend relationship. So my next career decision was based on location, not about what did I want to do, but actually where did I need to be. And I needed to be with Harry. And so between us, we decided that whoever could move first would move first, and whatever job that you had to do to move to do, that's what you would do. So my mum, who was very helpful, sent my CV off to Gwent County Council, who were advertising for trainee accountants. I didn't know she'd sent it off until I had a phone call from Mid Glamorgan County Council, because Gwent County Council had passed my CV on because they'd filled their places, saying, would I attend an interview the next morning at 7 a.m? Oh, right, okay. So off I go. All I can think of is local government. To be honest, what did I know about local government? Absolutely bugger all. So they offered me the job. So, yeah, great, that's me, I can move. So I moved back to Wales. I bought a house with my hubby-to-be. I qualified, and we started a family. And corny as this may sound, I think the best thing I've ever produced is my boys. But being a mum was never enough. I needed and wanted to work. As I was working in Glamorgan, I was working in various different departments, in finance, in audit. And you're going to think I'm sad, but actually audit was quite good because it meant I got out there. I went out to residential homes, I went out to family homes, I went to schools, and I actually started to see life as it really was. And I started to get a real understanding about what local government was all about the people out there that local government serves. And that was a really important point in my life, I think, in terms of understanding, you know, what contribution local government was making to the community. So I made probably the first career choice, really, and that was that I wanted to move into social care. I wanted to move into social services. I'd been in many residential homes, and I didn't like what I saw. And I knew that people were working really hard to try and do the best for these people, but I didn't like it. It made me feel very uncomfortable, and I thought I need to do more. And I thought if I move into that particular service, maybe I can do more. But I was restrained. My husband was working and still does. He works away most of the time, and so I was a single mum. I had a young baby to bring up, and so distance was an issue. I needed to have a job that I was sufficiently close to home and sufficiently close to where he was, so that when the inevitable phone call goes, Tom's been sick, can you come and get him? I was in a position to do it, and also, the picking up, the dropping off. So I was constrained. Having said that, I got promoted. I applied for a job in Monmouthshire as the finance manager of social services, and I was successful, and it was right on my doorstep because I live in New Inn. Great, it was absolutely fab. Really enjoyed it. Within a couple of years, I had 2 boys, and childcare, nightmare. I've had daily nannies, childminders, creches. I think I've probably tried every childcare option in the book, and I was constantly on the run. I don't think I ever stopped. It was just, my job was busy. I got my job under control. I made a lot of changes. I had a sense of satisfaction that the service I was delivering in social services as a finance manager was good, but I was bored. I needed a new challenge. Although I was doing something, I felt I could do something more, and I had more to give. So an opportunity came up for a head of service post as the head of resources and performance management in social care, which was, Joy's not here, but she would understand this. It was a left-hand post role, and it had a foot in the directorate, and it had a foot in the corporacy, and it meant that I would then be sitting as part of the directorate management team. I can remember the day I got the job. It was a hard day, lots of assessments, being scrutinised, being watched, being challenged, doing various different tests. So at the end of the day, when I came out from the members, because in those days you still had the plethora of members that interviewed you, and they offered me the job, and I was absolutely over the moon. I was 34. I had my brand new frock on and my new jacket. My God, did I think I was the bee's knees. Yeah, look, I've done it. I've proven to everybody that, I might have had a bit of a slow start in life. Might not be as bright as my sisters, but actually, I'm getting there. And I can remember, My husband was away, he was coming home that evening. I thought, great, that's it. It's like, you know, it's going to be him, he can take me out, celebrate all of that. And then I walked into the house and I walked into the kitchen and there was my 13-year-old German Shepherd of the time, Gwillem, who had multiple sclerosis, and he was led, unfortunately, in a pool of diarrhea. Couldn't get up, and he was looking at me with eyes that said, "I'm so sorry, Mum." And I began to sob. And I was in my finery and in my thing, and the job was forgotten. And I started clearing up and talking to him and helping him and so on. And my husband ran and I'm still sobbing. He automatically assumes I haven't got the job. Yeah, forget the job. The dog's not very well. We've got to get the dog to it. And for me, that was another big lesson in life, grounding what's important. You know, work is one thing, but about the people, the animals that you love, and anybody who knows me knows that, you know, once the current Mr. Harry has departed, I will marry the dog immediately. But that for me is, you know, it's about grounding. It's about recognizing what's important, because those, my husband, my children, my dog, are the most important things to me. If I die tomorrow, you know, I will be replaced. Somebody else will pick up my role. My role at home is probably the most important thing I do. And that, for me, helps me to do my job in work, hopefully, even better. One of the things that I thought about when I did get the job, I thought, fab, now I'm on the top table. Yes, that's it. High-powered stuff, great. No. High-powered, you know, dynamic, well, occasionally, but generally, it was 4 people who talked about different things. We made decisions, sometimes not the right ones, but our commitment was to improving the services. It was about delivering services to the most vulnerable. We all had our strengths, we all had weaknesses, but we all had a contribution to make, and everybody has a contribution to make. And it's understanding that and allowing people to make those contributions, which to me is absolutely vitally important. I got my head of service. Within a few years I thought, oh, right, I'm not really being utilised as much as I should be. Resources were becoming tight, and I was making people redundant. Not a very pleasant experience, and I've had to do it on many occasions now through my career. It's something that gives me sleepless nights, and you know, it's tough, but sometimes as a leader you have to make those tough choices and you have to make those tough decisions, and more importantly you've got to be able to live with them. So, you know, I recognised I wasn't being fully utilised. I had capacity. So in the budget round I said to Moyna, and many of you will know Moyna, I can do this job in half the time. So I offered up half of my role as savings to the pot. I was hopeful that there might be a role in the corporacy that I could pick up, but I took a risk because I needed a job just like everybody else. I had a mortgage to pay, kids to bring up, but it felt like the right thing to do. And so luckily enough for me, the corporate role came to fruition, and instead of going down to half-time, I had a role. I did my existing role, and I took on a corporate role as well. I had 2 bosses. One was the chief executive, and one was the director of social services. Interesting times, because I was being pulled in a number of different directions, and I had, you know, a number of masters. But it worked, and it worked well. I became a member of the corporate management team, and I loved that. Again, you know, the ability to influence decisions, to shape the organisation, to make a difference. I'm passionate about local government. I'm passionate about the difference it can make to people's lives. And for me, you know, just being at that top table was the opportunity to help shape what we were doing and how we were delivering and improving those people's lives. So, yeah, I've got a low boredom threshold. My managers knew that. They started giving me various different projects to do, and I've loved doing them, and I've learnt a lot through them. My portfolio has changed on a number of occasions. You know, I'm a team player. I like working as part of the Monmouthshire team, and it is a bloody good team here, actually. And I suppose it's been fun. It certainly wasn't planned. It was a meander, and I think probably more by default than design I ended up where I am. There's, in terms of barriers to my career, they've only been related to my own life and my own choices. There's never been an organisational barrier that I felt. My parents, my husband, all around me have been hugely supportive. And I'm nearly 50, and I finally know what I want to do. Thank you.
Well, I don't really know how to follow any of that because I've got nothing nearly quite so exciting to say, really, and I didn't start to think about this until quite late last night, and I'll tell you that story in a minute. But you all know me. I'm Kelly. I'm going to be 39 on Monday. I'm a Piscean. And I suppose the defining thing about me, yes, I'm a mum now, and like Sarah said, you know, you can't help but let that shape you. But I suppose up until this point, it's been the fact that I'm the big sister. And I'm the big sister because my father has had, I've got four brothers, nearly had 5, but he had a little girl in the end. And my father is nearly 65. And I've got brothers who are 13, 15, 16, and a little sister who's 3. So I'm used to being the big sister, really, that kind of binds everything together. And my little brothers, we're all Newport people, they always say to me, "You're posh, you are, aren't you, Cal?" Because, you know, I live in Monmouthshire now, I don't live in Pill, I'm not from Newport. And, you know, they see me as somebody who's, you know, quite influential and quite strong for them. But, you know, posh is probably the last word I'd use to describe myself. So it's funny, isn't it, how we all have these perceptions. So anyway, I was thinking about today, last night. I was stood in my kitchen about 5 to 7 last night, and I was in my pyjamas. And Harriet, my little one, is stood by my side, yanking on my pyjamas, asking for a 3rd Peppa Pig yoghurt of the night, which I'm ashamed to say. I was knackered, and yeah, go on, have another Peppa Pig yoghurt. It's great, just what I need at this time of night. And Megan was making Dutch apple cakes in school today, so I was pretending to measure things out. I wasn't measuring them at all. I don't have measuring scales. Yeah, that looks about right. 200 grams of flour. Yeah, I'll make 10 cakes. And I'm thinking, my God, I got to get my slides done for Select in the morning because Lisa's waiting for them. And at that point, Megan walks into the kitchen, which frightens me because I'm pretending to professionally measure her ingredients. And she says, "Kel," and she's trying bad language out at the moment, so she's pushing it a little. This isn't being live streamed, is it? Is this being live streamed? Okay. And she says, "Cal, have you done my ingredients?" "Yeah, I'm doing them now, Meg." "Cat's just shit in the bath." And you know what? All I can think about is my husband, who is lying upstairs in bed, and he's really sick because he's got debilitating glandular fever. It's actually not his fault. And in my head, I'm thinking, lazy FB. You can imagine what those words were. Which, you know, is totally irrational because he's ill. But, you know, when you get to that point and you think, right, I'm just going to have a complete meltdown. So I thought, right, what am I going to say tomorrow? And I thought, well, I can't really say anything because why would you listen to me? You know, I'm hardly somebody who can influence and say, yeah, this is the way to do it. Because I'm so totally untogether. You know, you really, really shouldn't listen to me. And I think that's probably the message from all of us today. Like, you shouldn't listen to us, you should listen to you, because, you know, you're the only ones that really can get it right. And I think that's really important, isn't it? That inner voice, your own truth is probably the only thing that is real and resonant. So anyway, I've had my meltdown and now I'm here, and I cleaned the cat poo up as well, as I always do. So we heard lots of really important things yesterday, and, you know, forgive me while I get a bit serious now. And I do think that there is a real problem with the way that women are underrepresented in public life. And we heard yesterday, Debbie spoke about who runs Wales, and some of those facts and figures, I don't think you can help but be quite alarmed and staggered by them, because they just do feel, don't they, really, really disappointing. You know, too few female directors, too few female leaders of councils, you know, too few female chief officers. And we've got to ask ourselves some serious questions about that. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, I read something in the papers about targeting underrepresentation and looking at the tools that we must develop to get more women to develop in their careers at all levels, not just at the top. And I thought, yeah, you know, we probably need a bit of that. Then on the news last night, I saw that Germany had actually passed a law that now requires companies to have 30% of the seats on any company or public board for women. They have to be designated for women. I'm just looking at something that Sally's prepared now for council, which is a report on shared parental leave, which is something I took advantage of when I was on maternity leave. My husband and I shared the maternity leave. We had 5 months each. And those things are all really important, aren't they? You know, those policy tools, I think, you know, let us go some of the way, because, you know, if we're serious about it, this stuff just isn't happening anyway, is it? It's not happening organically. It's not happening by pressure. So I do think we need a bit of that. But I don't think that alone helps women face the unique pressures that we all face in the workplace. You know, and I do agree, it is about men and women, and it's about who's best for the job. But when I got to go home and clean the cat poo up, it doesn't feel like that. You know, when I'm stood on my own in my pyjamas measuring, because it's got to be organic flour, it can't just be plain old flour. You know, it's something just doesn't feel right. So I think, you know, policy change is one thing, but there's definitely something, I reckon, about changing minds and mindsets as well. And that has to be an important part of our discussion today. Now, Debbie, you mentioned Lean In yesterday and Sheryl Sandberg, and, you know, the importance that's been attached to that. And yeah, I see that. I think it's necessary. I've read the book. Yeah, burn my bra if required, whatever. But my big problem with that is I'm sick of leaning in. I want to lean out a little bit as well. I want to breathe out, because the pressure just feels too much sometimes. And I think it's got to be okay for us to say that. You know, it's got to be okay to tell the cat poo anecdote. It's got to be okay to say, look, sometimes it's all just a bit too much. And maybe we're striving for some kind of ideal that doesn't really have to exist. So when I read Lean In, it was all about, you know, why aren't women getting to the top table quick enough? You know, what's going on? What's wrong with our system? And my problem is, I think there's something wrong with the top table. You know, I think we're trying to tackle the wrong problem. I think the problem is at the top table. And that's something I want to explore, really, and what I'm going to say. But who's seen the film or read the book? I Don't Know How She Does It. Have you seen it? It's a really good book, actually. It's a woman stockbroker in London, and it's based on her career. You know, she jets around the world. She's got to be here, there, everywhere. You know, in the office, she's equal to her male peers. She's got to go out and do the work that they've got to do. But then she comes home to 3 kids who all got nits, and, you know, she's got to find childcare, and she's got to manage all these really difficult, you know, kids' parties, and she's got to compete with the other mothers, and, you know, like me last night, measure the flour out, because it's got to be right. You've got to think about all of these things. And I don't know about you, but I hate Saturday mornings. And you shouldn't hate Saturday mornings, because you should think it's the end of the week, I'm going to lie in, I'm going to relax. But I feel like on Saturday morning at 7:30, this massive klaxon goes off in my ear. Washing, ironing, shopping, cleaning, cooking, swimming, park. And you've only got 48 hours to do it. 48 hours! How are you going to do it all by Sunday night? Does anyone else feel like that? Like, how are you just going to do it in 2 days, you know? I've taken to doing mad things, like I'll get up really early just to hoover or something. And I'm thinking, what Like, what is all that about? You know, is this right? Are we leaning in too much? And if Cheryl was here, I'd say, oh, Cheryl, you know, never mind leaning in. What about leaning out? Maybe I, Kelly Byrne, Piscean, big sister, will write leaning out. Because I wonder if it's about time we said it. What do you reckon? Yeah? Here. So, anyway, that, I suppose, is my proposition to you. And I think the reason I say is the problem with the top table is because I reckon, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone, so again, honestly, this is not me being preachy at all, right? But in modern life, I reckon ubiquity now is being prioritised and valued above anything else. So can I be at my desk by 9 o'clock? Can I still be at my desk at 6:30, 7 at night? Can I then race home, do the dinner, and then be back on email? Because if I'm not, I won't look very reliable, will I? You know, what am I doing? I'm obviously lazy. You know, this thing about being ever present, you know, this thing about I can't possibly let Megan go to school tomorrow with plain flour from the co-op. It has to be organic, 'cause they all want organic. You know, Harriet's birthday party was great, wasn't it? Because I had to get the best children's entertainer because I got to compete with Phoebe's mum. You know, and it is a little bit about that, isn't it? You know, and you're expected to be perfect at absolutely everything. And I just don't know if this stuff can hold. And so I think striving to be at the top table on those terms is just too bloody hard, isn't it? Because whilst I've done a day in work, I've got to go home and I've got to put another shift in. And I really think we've got to give some thought to that, not just as a society and a culture, but as an organisation as well. Because I don't want to feel that we're placing that pressure on people to be ever present, to always be in the moment, to always be working, or always to be active. You know, that just doesn't feel right for me. So, you know, what can I talk to you about? Well, like Sarah said, you know, when you have children, I think your perspectives change. And I'm really chuffed now because I've got 2 girls and I'm surrounded by boys constantly because my family is all men, you know, and that brings with it some of its own headaches, but pleasures as well. But people who know me really well, you'll know that one of the things I really like to do is I like to write. It's like an outlet for me. Sometimes I'll just sit there, I'll gather thoughts on my phone. I just like to write. I love the English language. And about 3 years ago, I started to keep this list of things that I said, one day I've got to sit down and tell my daughters about the world just to prepare them. I don't know when I'm going to do it. And I can imagine me telling Megan now, who's 13, who rolls her eyes at everything I say at the moment. It's no joke at all. But I must tell them this. And this isn't just about equality, because I share these things with my boys as well, my brothers. But I think if men and women are not together in this equality thing, then nobody wins. It's not about one or the other, it's about both. And I was just thinking, like, you know, the stuff that I'm going to pass on. So I looked through my phone, these lists I keep. And I think, again, this isn't a message to you from me. This is a message that one day I'm going to sit down when my daughter stops rolling her eyes at me and Harriet's old enough. These are the things I'm going to tell them, genuinely. And the first is about paving your own way. Like, I'm not saying don't listen to other women or don't value what they've got to say or don't think about their experiences. I'm just saying that somebody else's career path and the way they've progressed won't necessarily be the way that you do things. You know, it doesn't have to be that neat linear line that you've got to follow as well, because I don't think there is a way. And Paul's going to get out his violin now because I've told this story a million times. But when I first started out with Newport Council, one of the things I did is I worked in homelessness and I absolutely loved it. You know, it was that ability to be compassionate, but to be able to do something really enterprising about it as well. It felt really good. And I was out one night counting rough sleepers, which is what we used to do. And I went into Newport Station and there was this poor wretched boy, and he was only 16, 17, sleeping on a bench, freezing cold, kicked out of home. He couldn't live there because his mum's partner was violent. You know, he had body lice, you name it. And I always thought, if I can't do a job that I could see impacts him, then there's something bloody wrong. You know, I'd be doing the wrong job. So like you've all said, when you plot a career path, you don't do it because you think, oh, it's the next rung on the ladder, or this will be good, I'll be higher up. You do it because you can still see that you can make a difference through doing it. And I think that's one of the things I'll certainly be passing on to my two. The other thing is, like, be like you. Like, who else would you be? But I want to talk about femininity in this sense. So sorry about this, men in the room, but I've got boobs and I've got a bum, and I don't think I should hide that fact. I like to wear makeup, and I can't tell you the number of times I've been, oh, you must be the secretary, or are you some kind of dolly bird? In fact, I had to pull my mother off a guy once who said, oh, look at her, she thinks she's a bit of a dolly bird. I am my mother's daughter, definitely. And it's just tough luck, isn't it? Because if you want to wear a dress and heels and lipstick, then that's absolutely fine. And I can't tell you, through working in housing, how many meetings I've sat in that have been very male-dominated, where you make an intelligent contribution and the man looks at you and then looks at another man. Could she be right in what she's saying? You know, should we listen to her? You know, trying to validate your view via another man. And it's just tough luck, isn't it? And my advice to my daughters is going to be, do it, be bright, be persistent, and do it with red lipstick. Because I think that is really, really important. And then the other thing I'm going to tell them is to beware of those women who don't leave the ladder down. Because that is not good, is it? And I think we've all got examples of people who, you know, be like me, you know, I'm great, I'm fantastic, but actually, once I've got you to be like me, you know, I'm going to turn about and do something completely different. And I think we've all felt let down by those kind of women. And I don't really need to say much more about that, but I just think, you know, the main message is about leadership, isn't it? The only job of a leader is to create more leaders. It's simple, isn't it? You know, there's nothing more technical or difficult. And, you know, the thing I will always reinforce with my daughters is don't be powerful, you know, be soft power all the way. You know, if you're going to lead people, you always walk behind them. You never walk in front. You know, I always feel embarrassed when I interview people and they say, you've got to lead from the front. I just think, no, you so don't. And that will be something that I want to pass on. Something my mum and my nan always say to me, never say you've got lucky. Never say you've got lucky. The harder you work, the luckier you get. It's funny, isn't it? And I think that's something I always want to pass on, because it's about this imposter syndrome thing, isn't it? I couldn't have possibly got here on my own merit or my own ability. I must have got lucky. No way. Not about how people behave, it's how they're treated. As Sarah said, we're all products of our environments, you know, and don't ever, I think, as a woman, I will always tell my daughters, describe yourself as just a people person. Oh, I'm just a people person. There's nothing wrong with being insatiably curious, because that makes you get under people's skin and understand what makes them tick. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Don't try and pass it off as just being some limp people person. It's not about that at all, and I think we need to get real with some of the phraseology that we use about this. Okay, never, says me, who was trying to measure organic flour without a measuring instrument last night, never aim for perfection. Like, I reckon good enough just has to be good enough. You know, time is just too much of a precious commodity, isn't it, to always strive for perfection. And good enough just has to be good enough sometimes. And like, probably the most important thing, and I know loads of you won't agree with this, is leap before you look. Never look before you leap. And the reason I say that is because I think you've just got to lead beyond your authority sometimes. And sometimes you may not be in the job that you want to be in, but you've got to pretend that you are. You really got to pretend that you are in the job that you want to be in, and you've got to start acting and behaving like that. And I reckon that I was my best when I was 21, and I was living in Canada on my own, and I worked for Marks and Spencer in Vancouver, and I had no cushions. I didn't know anyone. I was completely unself-conscious. I really didn't care. I didn't overanalyze. I didn't think. And do you know what? I was probably brilliant. In fact, I know I was, because they gave me my own store to manage, because I pretended I could do it. And they believed me. And I managed Marks and Spencer's flagship store in North America on my own at the age of 21. And I didn't care. And I was probably all the better for it. Now, I probably overthink, overanalyze, worry, care about other people's feelings when I probably don't need to. You know, I probably do all of that stuff. And when I was younger and self-conscious, I was probably brilliant and I just didn't recognize it at the time. So I don't know if you can ever maintain that mindset, but if you can, I think you should try and do it. And I suppose, you know, me being me, I've got to say this bit, haven't I, about failure, you know, and if there was one defining comment I could ever use to describe myself is that I'm not scared of failing, but I'm scared shitless of not trying. I really am, you know, and I think that is the one thing I always want to instill with my daughters. I just want to give them that confidence that having a go is just so, so important, because just standing still sometimes is unthinkable, isn't it? We just can't do it to ourselves as women, as human beings. So I want them to be satisfied, fulfilled, happy, all of that. But I want them to be exhilarated and challenged and excited and to live off their wits as well, because I think that's probably when we're at our best. So I think, you know, I work hard. I try and work hard at all things in my life. I get loads wrong. I make so many mistakes every single day. But I don't take any of it for granted. And I think one of the privileges I've got now and one of the real opportunities is in terms of overseeing people's services, because I am passionate about creating these environments where we can all shine, men or women, where some of this pressure to lean in, start off Cheryl, is about leaning out, because I think we need some of that balance as well. And I know John's here to talk about things like women in leadership and some of the things that we can do and some of the things we want to do. But, you know, it's really important that we take the opportunity, whether through that formal environment or just informally, just to get together like we've done today and have a laugh and empathise and say, yeah, that feels resonant, and yeah, I've done that myself and I've cleaned up the cat poo. You know, I just think it's really important, isn't it, to break down some of the barriers and to get those conversations going. So, you know, I suppose I'll finish with where I started, really, which is don't listen to me, listen to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. I feel so proud to work with so many amazing people. Thanks ever so much to Liz, to Sarah, to Tracy and Kay. That was brilliant. And now I'd like to invite John, who's going to help us think about our own careers. So perhaps reflect on some of the great hints and tips and insights we've been given. And John's going to kindly share some thoughts around some new training that we've got going. So I'd like to welcome John.
I can't stand up here after listening to that. I thought it was awesome. I'm not going to do a talk. No. No, this is your event. I wanted to listen. I wanted to sit in because I'm interested, hopefully, and thankfully, I'm interested in potential. I'm interested in our collective potential. I'm really quite excited in terms of where we are with people services at the moment, with the people strategy. I think we've got our ducks finally lined up. We know exactly where we're going. I wanted to say something at the end of this, just because I hope there would be a lot of female colleagues in the room, and also to just remind everybody, we've relaunched, we've rebranded corporate training. We really understand the issues that are facing people wherever they are in Monmouthshire, wherever they are in the hierarchy, whoever they are. So we've got a brand new chunk of training that's available to you all, and I just want to make you aware of that. Some really interesting stuff that's come from the front line, that's come from our needs to change the culture and the way we are, because a lot of our challenges are cultural. And that's, that's a big part of our learning and development work. Also, just the timing is appropriate to explain that some of those workshops are specifically for females in the workshops. There's a whole range of leadership workshops targeted at you, at our female colleagues. So I'm just really inviting you to click on the hub and you'll see a new orange square that says Talent Lab. 50% of that talent in this organisation, at least 50%, is women, is females. Lots of those events are really interesting and I want you to get on them. I'm saying this now, it's quite urgent because we're going to be working very, very differently as well. We're going to be working with internal partners and external partners. Some of the events are so cool that we're only going to get a couple of places for Monmouthshire people because we're going to be sharing the learning with people from outside, from different areas. So I want you to get a heads up, keep checking what's being advertised. From April the 17th, there's a whole range of female leadership workshops, which I'd ask you to check out. They're at different times, different dates, so hopefully you can make it depending on where you are and what you're up to at that time. And just the one other thing before I shut up is just to remind everybody that the coaching training, and I know a fair few of you in this room have already done the coaching training, it's going down really well in terms of helping you. So whatever your outcome is, wherever you are in this organisation, get yourself on the coaching training because you can pick up some really, really good skills and tools that you can use in your work and your life. 205 managers and supervisors have already done it since last February. So there's also 205 people who are also available to coach you as well. Coaching isn't just about management, it's about where am I going, what's important to me at this point in my life, what's my outcome. So I would advise you to get yourself some coaching as well. There's some really brilliant coaches out there. You probably know some of them. There's some of them in this room. So get in touch with us in training for any of those workshops. Book yourself on everything that you can that's interesting. Tell us the stuff that you go on that's no good, because we want to know if it's not any good, we won't keep doing it, because that's a waste of time. And get yourself some coaching. That's all I've got to say, really, apart from I thought that was an awesome set of talks. Thank you for letting me